be kinder than Patman23, please. And I gotta stop using that joke.
Oh my God, it's brutal.
I am being brutal. I just couldn't get over. He's so damn nice.
I know.
Just say you're wrong. That's what you got to do. You just say you're wrong. Anyway. This edition of the podcast covers the most recent episode of Lovecraft Country on HBO. If you haven't seen that episode yet, go and watch it and then come back and listen. That's your warning.
It's Mountfish.
Force field.
Vulnerability.
It's Double M.
Well, his name is Catfish. He's like a dog with a bone, even when it leaves him out on a limb all alone. Invulnerability means nothing happens to you, and Atticus said it on the show, so it's gotta be true. Because you're wrong.
It's Mountfish.
Force field. Because you're wrong.
Vulnerability.
It's Catfish.
Yeah, his name is Double M. He's on Shoggoth Surprise. His comments are telling me he ain't got no eyes. Invulnerability isn't something you do. It's merely something you ward off that happens to you. Because you're wrong.
It's Mountfish.
Force field. Because you're wrong.
Vulnerability.
Because you're wrong.
It's Mountfish.
Force field. Because you're wrong.
Two wonderful panelists.
Vulnerability. It's Mountfish.
We like to lean into the funny, and of course we love leaning into our mistakes here at the Double P family of podcasts. Welcome to Shoggoth Surprise.
Shoggoth Surprise.
See, that's so much better than when I do it.
It's not really. It's not. It's just different, Matt, but it's not better.
Okay. Well, the voice that you just heard right there is, of course, the man who is constantly screaming, "What's in the basement?" It is Catfish.
Yeah. Matt, I'm so happy. My entire life I've been afraid of stilettos, and now finally some justification.
Definitely some justification. More on that in a minute, but we are looking at episode 5 of Lovecraft Country on HBO entitled Strange Case. The teleplay was written by Misha Green, Jonathan Kidd, and Sonia Winton Oddington. I don't know what her married name is. I just go with Sonia Winton. How about that? Because that's how
that. How about just Sonia? Whoa.
It was directed by Cheryl Dunye, and we definitely have some thoughts about this particular episode, but there's a lot of things from last week that we have to lean into that we were wrong about, Catfish.
We gotta clean up. We gotta clean up a little bit.
The reason why you got that rap for me at the beginning, and only me, was because I was the one who was most wrong. I was 0 for 2 on our speculations, whereas Catfish was only 1 for 2 on our speculations. And this was a small one as far as invulnerability versus force fields go. But I do want to give credit real quick to AM Prods and FXJ on Looperman. They helped lay some of those beds and record scratches down for me, and then I just completely embarrassed myself right over the top of it all. So I hope you all enjoyed that. Or if you didn't, you can always let our bosses know. That's the Double P family of podcasts by tweeting at the word double, the letters PHQ on Twitter, or you can find them at the same handle on Instagram. You can also find them on YouTube at Double P Media. And you can find them on Facebook, facebook.com/the word double, the letters PHQ. Please let us know when I'm wrong, as badly wrong as I was.
You know what, Matt? It's not so bad. I mean, we were wrong about the show we're podcasting about. We besmirched our quote-unquote boss's name last week. He was very upset that we gave a rating. I would think that everybody listening to us would know that that was a joke. but poor sense of humor by our boss. A lot of mistakes on the podcast. Matt, I have to think the only reason that we've been fired is because we aren't getting paid any damn money.
That's probably the case. And don't forget that if you go to the Twitter at the word double, the letters PHQ, you can always find the polls that we do retweeted, unless, of course, they're double Bs.
Double Bs?
Bubble bashers.
Matt, you put one out that was early in the morning for me. I didn't see it. I made yet another mistake in a week of mistakes. So there was a double B.
A double B?
Yeah, a double Bubba bashing poll that went out. I dare you to fire us.
At any rate, we got lots of stuff. As far as we're going wrong, let's just start with this one.
Let's go through it.
Last week we went through the invulnerability argument, which was the force field argument, and I put a poll out saying, should we believe that Tick saying Christina using the invulnerability spell is accurate? And actually, out of 1,100 votes on that one, on the 100 Twitter, 63.6% said that you were wrong, and 36.4% said that you were right in terms of saying that it's not. But
listen,
we've been corrected.
Let me just give a shout out to the catfish stands out there. Yeah.
Well, we were wrong. It seems that 63.6% of you are wrong. You know how I know?
How?
Because a podcast that is in the top 10 covering this show, as opposed to the top 70, we're 68th this week, folks. 68th. Caught us with some tweets here. That's our friends over at TV Podcast Industries. It says, I'm so confused by this argument. Christina had the ability to release the Shoggoth attack memory to Letty and George in episode 1. That's a different spell to all the other ones that she's done with magic. There are apparently other spells in the Book of Names. Does that even help?
Okay, listen. I'm never going to say that I'm right when I'm going up against TV Pod Industries. I just have a question. I'm just going to, because I'm wrong, I'm going to phrase things.
He's a dog with a bone. He will not let it go.
I'm going to phrase things as questions. Okay, so she had the ability to release the Shoggoth attack memory, right? That's but I'm not quite sure. Is that a spell? I guess it's a spell. Fine, I agree.
And also, didn't think that your force field was necessarily a force field in that episode, that third episode. They thought it's more like an Immobilis spell from Harry Potter. She froze his actions, but he's still conscious. They say we don't know if Catfish is going to get a definitive answer on this. So you can still claim a small victory there, right?
I mean, yeah. What I was trying to do was, because I was initially wrong about the one spell per customer, I was trying to wedge, like, okay, she's got like a force field spell with a car. Maybe she's the one when Tick and George and Letty were being attacked after being in the diner. Okay, so I thought, okay, maybe she used that one again when they were trying to escape from Artem. And then I thought, okay, if she's only got one spell, well, she can kind of wrap her immobility, her force field shell around him, making him immobile. So this all comes from my complete misinterpretation of the one spell per customer. That is the sui generis mistake I made, from which many further mistakes arise from.
And we also heard from our good friend at Patman23. We love him. It says, just finished this episode of Shoggoth Surprise from last week, and I can't leave Catfish hanging.
Yes.
I'm on his side when contrasting Christina's magic as something like a force field rather than a kind of invulnerability as we popularly understand it. I am a bit hesitant to support one spell per customer as a hard rule. Maybe there are magical spells that the Lodge would consider more of a parlor trick than a legit spell. After all, I'd say more than one spell was at play at Titus's vault. If Christina is also William, which we found out this week, she is, that feels like a spell in use. Same with Amnesia's spell about Shoggoths. Patman, you're so harsh with your criticism of us. I don't know how you could possibly, face people on Twitter when you lash out like this with such harsh criticisms of our thoughts. It's amazing.
He was kind. It's Patman. Even when he is loath to disagree with people, and when he does, it's like he puts on the velvet, if not extremely cushioned glove when he delivers his opinions, and I appreciate that about him. All right, Matt, that covers previous mistakes on.
Don't worry, we'll make more, folks.
So I'm saying let's get started on some new mistakes that can baffle our listeners as well as our quote-unquote boss.
That would be our ratings, of this particular episode. Once again, Strange Case.
Let's do it.
This episode was probably, I think it is. It's the lowest rating I've given an episode of this series so far. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it 8.3, what I like to call double S's.
Double S's?
Stabbing stilettos. The previously mentioned stabbing stilettos. Ouch. I thought that some of the racism stuff and all of that was very moving. I didn't have any problem with that. I didn't have any problem with the Montrose thing or whatever. But again, what happens with this show, it seems to be this pattern. Let's show you the Ori just for a glimpse 1 week, and then the very next week we'll have Christina coming for it and telling you exactly what she wants it for. That seems to be a pattern that happens a lot in this episode. For instance, last week, Tree saying, hey, there's something going on with Sammy and your dad. And this week we find out exactly what's going on with Sammy and Atticus's dad. Father? ? So this week, the big thing is, what's in the basement? And I'm guessing that even though it looks like we're going to be looking back into Atticus's past, possibly by the trailers, it still seems like the next time that we're in Christina's house in Chicago, we're going to find out what's in the basement. And I've got a guess for that, but we can talk about that later as well. My point is, it just seems to telegraph so much. And I don't know, the whole climbing out of skin thing isn't really my kind of idea of actual horror. It's just more like gore. So I just couldn't get really behind this. There were some positive things, like I thought that the Atticus-Letty relationship worked a lot better this episode, even though there was a lot of the typical TV tropic fight, makeup kind of thing in it. It seemed like their chemistry was really good in this ep. How about you, Catfish? What did you think of this episode?
Well, first of all, I gave it 6.5, what I like to call double S's.
Well, you double S's also? Double S's?
Yeah. Slimy sheaths.
Ooh.
That is when you break out and you gotta slough off the dead skin, or perhaps even the still living skin.
Ugh.
This is my problem with this episode, is that the thing is, and Bubba had an issue with this a lot earlier than I did. Essentially, we're sort of having adventures of the week. Right. First, we started off. It was started off with the adventures of the 2 weeks, and we had a lot of creepiness and also some true horror moments.
Yeah.
As we go on, there's sort of less, as you said, like true horror moments. It's a little bit creepier, and what happens is it's sort of, I feel like we're kind of at an inverse here. It's, if you're going to do an adventure of the week, and you're not going to do a lot of character building should be saved at the beginning. These things should kind of go together. I guess my whole point is they've given us an adventure of the week that is pretty, I would say, boring.
Okay.
to be really non-Patmanish about it and to not be gentle. It's a lot of character building with Letty's sister, with Montrose. This is all good, but it felt like we kind of stopped the whole forward momentum and decided to do character building for two characters. That's really what happened here. And so for me, it was what it was like? It was like, as I mentioned earlier, when Letty and Montrose and George and Tick were in that car leaving Artem. And then they were speeding out of town, just like the plot and adventure was speeding in this show. And then just like they hit a wall, I feel like we hit a wall with this episode.
Wow.
So I presume it'll pick up again. It's just, I would be curious to hear what Bubba had to say because he wanted more character building. I'm not sure that he wanted it this way in the middle of the season. It seems a strange way to do it. And that's probably why Bubba gave this episode. No, I'm just kidding.
I've got two questions for you, Catfish.
Yeah, give it to me.
You said that this episode obviously was Ruby centric. It also highlighted, and I feel like very economically, gave us a lot of insight into Montrose. But
I mean, I don't think
are they building these two characters for a specific reason? I know you've read the books. I don't want you to say anything about that. But are they building? Is there a reason that we need to invest in these characters so heavily right now before the rest of the season plays out? Do you feel?
Let's put it this way. I don't think there was a reason we needed to invest. I disagree with you that it was that Montrose's storyline was economical. It was certainly shorter than Ruby's, but I don't think it was economical. Did we need to have the backstory for the both of them before the next episode? I would hope not, because if we did, it should have been done earlier. I mean, I felt like it's funny because was it you or was it Bubba who picked up a clue in the Indiana Jones episode that Montrose might have had a more intimate relationship with the security guard that he was able that let them in to the museum.
We double beat all last week, so it couldn't have been Bubba. It had to be me.
All right, well, good then. So that was a good call. We have to say Bubba's was picked us up right away that the twins were the same person. I'll probably get back to loving this, but it did feel like a big putting the brakes on here. It really slowed the momentum for me.
Okay. Well, I can understand that. And I don't know what that's going to mean for the show in terms of the future and people watching it, because for the second straight week, the ratings have declined once again. Now below 730,000 watching it on the first run, and this was not a holiday weekend, but we did put out a poll asking how people were consuming the show, and this leads to your thoughts from last week also. I asked, how are you viewing Lovecraft Country? And we had 1,800 votes on the 100 Twitter, and 44% said they were actually streaming it on HBO Max. So if these ratings are true, like monitoring TV kind of numbers, then that would make sense with that. And HBO probably, like you said, may be happier that they're being able to figure out who's watching it on streaming. But a third of the people did say they watched it on TV first airing. 11.1% said it was out of, they just watch it on demand later on in the week whenever they want. An equal amount said that they pirated it. And so Hamlet is Dead and Patman 23 both responded to the poll. Hamlet said on demand during the week. Patman 23 said, I have to watch it first run so I don't have to avoid Twitter afterwards. He doesn't want to avoid Twitter, obviously, because he needs to reach out and lash out at people on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Folks, we told you what we thought about this particular episode and had some thoughts about how you're viewing the show, but we do want to know what you're thinking. Please tweet to @double, the letters PHQ on Twitter. You can also find them that way on Instagram. You can go to the Facebook page at facebook.com/doublepHQ. Again, the words double, the letters PHQ. Something we haven't mentioned, though, Catfish, is that if you use the hashtag Shoggoth Surprise, that's SHOGGTH Surprise. Pulled a Matt moment there. But if you leave a written review on whatever podcast you're getting this from, or follow on Spotify, if you can leave reviews anywhere and do so, you're also entered to win a Cthulhu Funko Pop from the podcast, meaning you get to win it from Catfish.
I'll send it right to your dang doorstep.
Won't even have to give anything other than, your personal information, like your address.
Yeah. I mean, I could ship it to a post office if that's what you want. But if you want it to come to your house, I need to know what your damn address is for your house. It's as simple as that.
We'll keep you update on the drawing as well as we go along. We have heard what some people think. Our friend from the Delightfully Dreadful podcast, who followed us along during our dreadful Los Angeles watch, actually says she's starting. That's at Jules official _ says she's finally watching Lovecraft Country now, starting episode 3. And commented that what happened to Uncle George is devastating and has a serious amount of love for Letty, which is great. Most importantly, because we once again must apologize for recording late because we have lives. So you're getting this podcast probably a day or so later this time around. We've already gotten some feedback for this episode.
Well, that's really good. That's really good because since we're constantly wrong, what we're able to do now, for today at least, is to provide you feedback for the episode that we're talking about that will be better than the feedback that I am giving. So, Geek Girl Soup at Geek Girl Soup says, never really liked Cardi B music until this show. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Let me handle this because obviously you're too enraged anymore.
I'm going to just take my headphones off right now, Catfish. You go ahead.
I'm going to read Patman's comments, and you just try to contain yourself. Patman says, the latest episode, Strange Case of Lovecraft Country, certainly embraced a specific horror genre. If we look past all the sloughing off of bloody skin for a moment, a lot of things were confirmed or reinforced. The William Christina thing was solidly confirmed. We see Christina doing her second magical sabotage operation, having Ruby smuggle in some kind of elder sign into Captain Lancaster's office to do something bad. Now we know what's happening in his office with the dude. He said, I'm not even going to think about how they were going to make him talk without a tongue. I will say this. I'm going to reply to this, Patman. They do say something about, like, they're going to get the information out. It'll be easier to get information out of him when he's dead. So I think that seems to be their plan now. I'm probably wrong about that, Matt. I said something, so I'm probably wrong about it. Patman goes on to say, we were reminded that Hiram was an astrophysicist, which makes his orrery of a solar system kind of an appropriate thing, even if it isn't our solar system. Patman says, thumbs up on Letty the photographer preserving the pages from the Book of Names, even if that will probably cause problems. Hey, our second phone call to Korea, looking forward to the revelations next week. Thank you very much, Patman.
Looking forward to the revelations next week. Patman, calm down. I mean, please. I'm sorry. We got some back comments from YouTube as well.
Wait, hold on, Matt. Before we get into that, you know what I'm surprised nobody said anything about, and maybe it's just because I'm of a certain age. This whole Ruby's whole transformation was like the serious version of that old Eddie Murphy sketch on SNL, where he has someone make him up as white, and everywhere he goes, like he goes to pay for a newspaper, and they're like, "What are you doing? You don't have to pay." Do you remember that sketch at all from SNL?
Absolutely not.
All right. Well, so I thought I was reminded of that sketch this way during this week. So that's it. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
We got some back feedback here that we need to catch up as well from YouTube. And Null Test Channel, that's
Mhm.
Null Test Channel, twice. When we had our 1 hour and 40-minute podcast, which WBB,
WBB.
Wet Blanket Bubba,
Oh, yeah.
when he complained that it was an hour and 40 minutes, strangely, he was on that podcast, and it was cut from music. I don't put the music in the YouTube stuff. Anyway, Null Test Channel wanted more podcast.
Well, he got it because episode 4 was an hour and 42 minutes. You're welcome, No Test Channel, No Test Channel.
We like to listen to our listeners and our watchers for sure. Null Test Channel also commented on episode 4 regarding our Indiana Jones comments, saying, Indiana Jones, more like Goonies. That's a good reference, too.
Okay.
The reason that we went more with the Indiana Jones thing, it was, Catfish, we were right about something.
Oh, what was it?
Well, Misha Green and Journey, a whole bunch of cast members said that they were going for the Indiana Jones vibe specifically when they did that episode last week. So
Okay, excellent. I'm not going to say that No Test Channel is wrong. I'm just going to tell him he's lucky he doesn't have to deal with Pat-Man.
I was going to say, Pat-Man, if you have a YouTube channel, maybe you should, or a YouTube username, maybe you should get on that.
Go get him!
Don't at us, Pat-Man, please.
Go get
please.
him, Pat-Man. Get him!
Please don't at us. We're scared of you now.
I'm so confused by this bit. All right, so here's another poll that we have. The poll's so nice, we mistakenly did it twice. Matt, first you said, what nickname best suits Bubba at Fit and Trim in last week's WHQ pod? The responses were Buzzkill Bubba, some Bummer Bubba, and Wet Blanket Bubba.
Yes.
Buzzkill Bubba 25%, Bummer Bubba 12.5%, Wet Blanket Bubba 62.5%. That's 800 votes on the 100 Twitter. And then because I'm a moron, I tweeted it out myself. And this time, Buzzkill Bubba got 36.4%, Bummer Bubba got 45.5%, and Wet Blanket Bubba came in the bottom at 18.2%. But Matt,
what do we do? What do we do?
Well, clearly the only thing to do is, even if people voted twice, as I suggested they do, is combine the polls. What were the final numbers, Matt?
Well, we did a little bit of a crazy thing called math, and we came up with the following winners. If you look at all of the votes total, that's 1,900 votes. Actually, Catfish, you had quite a few more votes on your poll, which makes sense because most people are wrong, and so therefore you're more popular. Anyway, the totals of the poll were Wet Blanket Bubba received 700 votes with 36.8%. Bubba and Buzzkill Bubba, this has never happened before. They tied at 31.6% of the vote with 600 votes apiece.
Wow, that was our tightest poll ever. You know what we should do? We should double up on these polls more often.
Just don't count on finding them on at the word double the letters PHQ. Our podfather refuses to retweet anything that puts him in a bad light.
Did he? That's hurtful.
Yeah, he didn't retweet yours, didn't retweet mine. He has no love for us. Pat-Man, sick him, Pat-Man.
Yeah, get him, Pat-Man. All right, so we got some more polls here. We really went poll crazy last week.
We went poll crazy last week.
Speaking of Wet Blanket Bubba, which is his official name now, what was his worst action for episode 5 of the podcast? What was it his worst action was being a sourpuss on the previous podcast, or that he was too scared to return for episode 4 of the podcast? And this one was definitive, Matt. 63.6% said he was too scared to return. That's 1,100 votes on the 100 Twitter.
We did have a couple of serious polls. Serious.
Not that serious.
Serious. Well, sort of serious polls. How about what we had a what's worse poll regarding some things that happened last week. I asked which of these two jobs was worse in last week's episode, museum security guard or Tick's librarian, and clearly 64.3% of you like Catfish better than me because I thought Tick's librarian had the harder job. 1,400 total votes on the 100 Twitter.
I mean, Tick's librarian was doing his job. The museum security guard's going to get fired.
That's true. That's true. One last poll here before we get into recapping this episode because we haven't talked about this episode in a half hour now. At any rate, what's worse for Yahima? Being trapped dead for 100 years or being freed then killed? Clearly a majority out of the 1,900 votes that we got on this poll, 73.7% thought that being freed then killed was the worst for Yahima.
Hey, Matt, just a quick question, quick reminder. Which side of this did you take, this poll?
Probably the wrong one.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right.
But I'm never wrong. I say that by being wrong, that I'm never wrong. You ready to talk about this episode, Catfish?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see how many mistakes we can make.
All right. Ready to make some mistakes here. Once again, I mistakenly tried to group storylines together and then found that I couldn't really, so I had to split some of them out of the others. But here we go. We'll start off with Tick and Montrose and Letty. Tick and Letty, of course, come to Yahima's room where Montrose is waiting. He tells them that Yahima and the pages are gone. Tick ain't buying it. He decides to just beat the crap out of Dad. He later tells Letty that he knew Montrose had killed her.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's not my reaction to what you just said. That's my reaction to the writers just throwing that in there. Huh? How did Tick automatically know?
He just knows his daddy.
Sure.
Anyway, Tick rushes downstairs looking for the pictures of the missing pages, or any kind of evidence he has of the missing pages. And when Letty comes down there, he demands the photos of those pages if she has any photos of them. He looks down. He sees that Letty's got a baseball bat in her hand to defend herself, and leaves.
Yeah. Tick's got anger issues. I mean, say what you will about him. We've only seen him actually do things that are super cool and heroic, and Montrose is the one who's been a big dick. But Montrose is very calm when he kills people and does his dickish things, whereas Tick has got some residual anger in his life.
As for Montrose, we'll branch off to just his storyline now. Mm-hmm. Montrose then goes to see Sammy, and I couldn't tell if this was supposed to be a motel or an apartment. I'm assuming an apartment.
Yeah, I thought it was. I don't know.
It kind of had that motel look.
I thought it was his digs.
Was it his place? All right. And of course, after being asked who beat him up, which he doesn't answer, Montrose and Sammy, they get to business in a same-sex HBO kind of way.
All right. I mean, yes. The one thing I was jealous about this whole time was the amount of saliva that Montrose is carrying around. I would never be able to spit that much into my hand.
That's handy for his economy, though. He never has to worry about wasting money on some of those products.
I mean, my God.
And then, of course, what does a good partner do? You show off your partner to your friends, which is what happens in the next scene with Sammy and Montrose. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how they're going to this ball and they're going to do a dance called the Locusta Migratoria, which is, I guess, the migration of the locusts.
Sure, that seems to be. God knows, Matt. We're probably wrong about that. It was probably completely not that.
That's like two overt mentions of locusts in this episode. The first one being in a storyline we'll get to, but it was while the TV was talking about locusts as as William was cutting Ruby out of her skin.
Mm.
And I don't know if that means anything or not. But it just seemed weird that locust would be mentioned so much when the metaphor, seemingly for all of the metamorphosis, was a butterfly.
Yeah, I mean, we do know locusts are old school biblical plague.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talk about Adam and the Bible and stuff like that. So yeah, locusts. Let's have it. Frogs, locusts. What are the 7 plagues? I mean, I know one of them is like internet outages.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which you're probably wishing you had one right now as you listen to this podcast, folks.
I should just list all the plagues. I'm sure I'll be right about all of them. Foot fungi, that's a plague. Yeah. When when Amazon tells you they've delivered your package, but you can't find it anywhere, and then you try to contact them and realize there's nowhere for you to really call, that's a plague. So I think I've named like 4 of them. So I'll leave the rest for other people to name.
Yeah. Tell us all the plagues. At the word double, the letter PHQ on Twitter.
Modern plagues. Let us know.
Modern plagues. Montrose's storyline in this episode, and this is why I call it economical, is that he goes from shame to openly and publicly displaying his passion for Sammy at the ball or whatever it was they were participating in, where Sammy was a winner. Looked like Sammy was a big winner there in more ways than one.
So here's a good example, Matt. Sorry if I just jump in here. So, okay, so it feels like it would have been more interesting had we learned more complex things about Montrose. I mean, like I said, you picked up on a hint, but it was just a hint, in that he kind of made this transformation over more than a 20-minute period would have been more interesting to us. In other words, we don't see, like at the beginning, I don't know, is it shame that he's hiding it? What is it? I mean, obviously it's back in the time when like this is a big deal, but
right.
I mean, so he goes from 0 to, rainbow flag on the car in like 25 minutes. So, I mean, it just feels clumsy. That's all to me.
On the other hand, if we'd gotten all of that stuff, then we would have said that this was too late.
I mean, just give us this part of it the first part of it a little bit earlier, and not all of it. And it's okay. We know he's gay. He's kind of hiding it, and then boom, he's okay with it. This is just it's not enough time for us to like go on the journey with him.
Catfish is angry. I don't know.
I'm disappointed.
I'll tell you who's angry. That's Tick.
Okay,
And...
yeah. I thought you were going to say Batman. Just like Tick, Batman and his anger issues.
So we find Tick and Letty. That's our next storyline. We find Tick. Mm-hmm. We pick back up with him. He's nursing his double ends.
Double ends.
Gnarled knuckles.
Oh yeah, that completely reads. That's right. That is great.
That's why this is an audio podcast. Mm-hmm. Letty says that there are undeveloped pictures of the pages, and Tick thanks her for stopping him from beating his father to death, and explains those aforementioned anger issues that you were talking about, Catfish. And then, of course, they make up in an HBO way.
Mm.
Now, I liked their chemistry in this episode. I know that we'd had some conversations perhaps with WBB about that before, whether the chemistry was sold well or not, which I never had a problem with, but I really liked it in this one because there were ups and downs, but it didn't seem, again, it was a little bit TV tropic in the fact that it takes a fight to make up, but it still, it worked for me better this time around. How about you?
Well, I believe I was the one who said I had a problem with it last episode because it feels like, I mean, we're only on the 5th episode, but it feels like this was the 3rd episode in a row where they'd had something the previous episode and they're acting like they don't have it, and then they get together and then The next episode, it starts off like they don't have anything. So, I mean, this is like, I mean, let's see what happens, Matt. If they start off the next episode and they're not like, okay, we're together, then I'm going to be even more frustrated than I am now. It just this is a bit they're doing now. It feels like they're playing a trick on me.
Okay. Then Tick, while they're looking at some of those developed pictures, he's drifted off to sleep and he's having a dream about the old mansion there in Artem, and he sees his ancestor and the fire's going on, and he himself starts to burn up.
Mm-hmm.
So this is clearly a metaphor for how this magic is turning him evil, the way Letty thinks later on in this scene, right?
Okay, sure.
And Letty is developing the film, and he has already deciphered some of the symbols of the pages using the 3 symbols on his ring that he thinks are his initials. How conceited of him.
Matt, quick question here, because as we all know, I probably didn't watch this episode very carefully because I didn't like it that much. But where did he get that idea that those were his initials on the ring?
I don't know. Did Christina say something to him about that in the episode where she gave him the ring? I don't recall her saying anything.
I bet TV Podcast Industries has the answer to this question, but I was completely befuddled how a ring that didn't seem like it was his ring would have his initials on it.
What I found more befuddling was the fact that his middle initial is the same as his dad's lover's.
Okay, all right. Well, now, see, listen, I bet TV Podcast Industries is going to talk about that. In your face, TV Pod.
In the top 10 they are, folks. Go listen to them. They're a great podcast. Unlike us, who are still in your 70 top favorite podcasts covering this series.
Well deserved. Our ranking is well deserved, Matt.
I can't imagine why. So anyway, after this dream, and they talk about all of this stuff, one thing that I noticed was a symbol that they were looking at was very similar to the symbol that Christina had on, I don't know, what was that, a rock that she handed to Ruby?
Sure, it could have either been a rock or maybe someone was like, did little crafts and they like cut like half a clamshell on the beach and then decided to do some etching on it. It was something like that.
A petrified cow patty. I'm not exactly sure what it was. But at any rate, it was the same symbol.
Yeah.
And credit to Patman23. We're very sorry, sir. But he told us that the symbol on Christina's rock, as well as the symbol we see here, is actually, if you're into Lovecraft at all, it's the elder symbol.
Okay, I like it.
But Patman also thought that this perhaps had a different meaning here. Now, we saw that symbol in this picture. It also had the word letterings for the word protection underneath it, or at least that's what Tick seems to think that he's spelled out. It could also be just Chinese hieroglyphs, these symbols that Tick's seeing. But then he ends up having to tell Montrose, I punched Dad out because he clearly killed Yahima. And this sets Letty off again, wants to think that all of this evil is actually coming from the pages and it's making them all evil. And of course, we get the old Jedi Sith question. Does the power make you evil, or does the evil make the power?
Well, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I'm kind of am enjoying here. This sort of, the idea that it doesn't matter, what's in your heart, that, the absolute power will corrupt you. I mean, he does say, look, we can get it. He says we can get it to help our people out. And she says, well, how is that different from what the bad guys are doing? Which is a nice, I think is a good point. Letty makes a good point.
I think that it's an interesting question to ponder for sure. But that, nothing makes you want to take a bath like discussing these heavy issues. So that's what she goes and does. And Tick finds her, and she says that she never really had any faith. then Tick tells her about Jia, the Korean girl with whom things ended in a strange way, he says, and that he's unsure what love actually is. And she thinks that love wasn't ever anything special. They're both basing this on their parents' experiences. They decide that what they have, though, is special.
Well, it's funny that you talk about like kind of the whole idea of like once you have the power, what that does to you as far as your point of view, because I feel like that was also something that was alluded to a lot in the Ruby storyline.
Absolutely. Should we get into that?
Let's do it.
All right.
Matt, that's what you call in the business a seg.
Oh, a seg.
Yeah.
See, I don't recognize a seg. I only recognize segues.
I'm segueing right into the Ruby discussion.
Oh,
like a professional.
You slick guy. I mean, I'm dealing with a true professional here, folks. That's why this podcast sounds so bad, because you can't have somebody as atrocious as me against a slick professional like that.
Stop it.
Okay, Ruby wakes up as a white woman. Actually, if that wasn't surprising enough, she actually wakes up as the dog handler from Artem, Dell. Except this time in Chicago, she's going under the name of Hillary Davenport, evidently. And this is going to bring a whole lot of questions to me here in a second. But she goes into the business district. She's all freaked out over the fact that she can't understand why she's white. In the area, she bumps into this boy. The cops conveniently show up right then with their sirens blazing so that they can proceed to beat the poor little black guy or at least shove him down. She actually stops it. She says that the boy didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden the interest turns to her, and the cops take her back to William's place. But she is starting to transform back while she's in the cop car. The cops are freaking out, saying, is this the episode he was talking about? Is this what's going on? But William, he takes her inside after the cops return her, and he puts her on plastic, and he pulls up this large knife. You think he's just going to hack her, but instead he's just cutting the real Ruby out, evidently.
Matt, there's a couple things that I'm confused about regarding this, the transformations here. It's not really a big deal, but it's a little confusing to me. Like, was William like, I got better things to do, let's just let her? Do you think that was his decision to kind of let her find out on her own? Like, tough love, you got to deal with it,
Ooh.
Let her just stumble her way through it. And then bookended to that is the end of the episode when it seems like it's a mistake that Christina comes out of William. Instead of him like, I'm going to show you. It's so that it makes it confusing to me, like how William Christina, who decides who's going to be there at what point, and then what's his real quote unquote form, because we know what Ruby's real form is. Are we going to assume that Christina's the real form because she's the one that broke out of him? I guess that would be the answer.
That's what I am assuming, and
okay.
I'm assuming that none of them have any control over how long the potion actually lasts. Although Christina probably has a lot more experience, which is why she was trying to get out of the room real quick before it happened. I think Christina probably wanted to use the dual personalities to continue to manipulate people around her. Now Ruby can, who is a sister of Letty's. If at any point that they let Ruby out of the place, she could go to Letty and say, yeah, that William dude. And then when they put all two and two together, it can be a real problem.
Well, I thought that the funny thing is, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but this is something I'm interested in talking about in this episode. So why not? Is that my initial assumption was that, they want to get at Letty. They want the orrery. So my assumption the whole time was, and they want to still interact with Tick. My assumption the whole time was they're using her to get to Letty and Tick. So maybe this was just a test run to have her deal with the cops. But it seems to me their ultimate plan is, get her into the home, steal the orrery, or somehow sabotage Letty and Tick.
Possibly so. One thing that we know for certain, as you pointed out, is that Christina is the person in charge, because not only did she break out of Will in this episode, but she also, we saw her go into the space last week and then come out of the space and was William. So she just took the potion, bam. Evidently, transformation to the new person is pretty quick, but out of the new person takes a little doing.
Well, it's considering Christina's expertise that still doesn't make sense to me. That it doesn't scan to me. Yes, it seemed like a mistake that she broke out, but also it seems like she's smarter than that. So I don't know.
Well, maybe this is a way to play on to Ruby in order to show her a woman's power, because Ruby in this episode does mention not just about feeling powerless because she's black, but also as a woman.
Right.
So perhaps that's got something to play in there as well. But my big question out of all of this came in about Dell. Because why this form for Ruby? Is it just because Christina used that form because she knew that Dell would be in Artem and wouldn't be in Chicago? Is it possible that Dell that we saw in Artem, is she also transformed? Is this just a transformation that occurs with anybody that isn't Christina, whereas Christina can change, her appearance to be a man? Could Dell just be someone besides Dell?
Well, it could have been Christina being Dell.
No, it couldn't be Christina being Dell, because Christina and Dell were at the same place during the second Shoggoth attack when they were on their way back from the village.
Got it. All right. Well, I assume it's just a, that even though this is just another spell that she knows, shout out TV Pod Industries, that
is it a spell? It's
she
just
needs
a potion.
But I think you need to brew. It seems to me to brew the potion, you have to determine what the final form is going to be, and so for that you need to either have a very clear idea or know someone very well. So maybe just because Christina was familiar with Dell, it was easy to come up with that form.
Maybe Christina just has a bunch of Dell hair samples lying around.
That could be another thing. It could that's a good question. How do you come up with the form? Do you have to come up with it yourself, or do you use like you said, like a hair or something from a real person? So then this becomes a real question. It might be worth going back to look at the episode when we were dealing with Adam, quote unquote. When William was with Adam, did Adam not know that William was Christina? I mean, Bubba figured it out just from watching one episode. You never saw him in the same place. Did Adam ever figure it out? And if so, was Adam cool with, someone who's actually a woman being around?
Yeah, well, I feel like Bubba used the logic. Wait a minute, William's not here when Christina's here. Christina's not here when William's here. So we saw some of that same logic being applied across Twitter today. I didn't include it in our doc, but there might have been one or two people out there on Twitter who were saying maybe Dell, the Dell we saw in Artem, was actually Montrose trying to protect Tick and Letty by trying to send them away with Dell's intimidation with the dogs and everything.
I mean, I'm too confused. That's too many Dells.
Well, I'm just saying that the Dell that we saw in Artem was Montrose. And I say I poo-pooed on that just because I'm like, why would Christina let Montrose, if she knew that was a possible transformation?
Yeah.
She'd have to know from the form.
Yeah.
That why would she let Montrose possibly ruin her ritual spell that she needed to kill Teddy in the first place.
No, I disagree. I disagree that was Montrose.
I'm with you too. But we're going to put a poll out there for you. In fact, it's out there already.
Okay.
At the word double, the letters PHQ on Twitter. He does retweet that. He did retweet that poll because there was no BB involved.
No Bubba bashing.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Ruby wakes back up in her normal form, and William comes into the room. She acts like she's asleep. He knows better. But he's talking about metamorphosis and Hiram Epstein. Was that the same Hiram? Was it Hiram's pages that Christina mentioned in episode 3 or 4?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. He mentions doorways, which was an interesting word, and that magic and science are the same thing. Then speaks in the language of Adam for a second. And at first I thought, what, is it a scarf tying spell? No. It makes butterflies appear. And then I said to myself, boy, what a waste of Adam's language. But I'll put that on the poll as well. Check that out, probably at Musical Concepts. I don't know if Bubba will retweet that one or not. But is conjuring butterflies a waste of good magic, or does it break bad news a little better? Will continues to say, metamorphosis is a potion that wears off after time, and Ruby relates how the experience of being a white woman, of making her feel like a human, but that coming back to herself was like being unmade. William promises that process will get easier, and even though he gives her permission to just take off if she wants, he leaves another vial of the potion and a big wad of cash to do with as she wishes. And she doesn't seem to want to do that, but of course she gives in to the temptation and enjoys a day eating ice cream and getting free papers and all kinds of things as Hillary, the white woman, as Dell. Ruby returns and enjoys a bath. Once again, William walks in because that's what men do with women in bathtubs in this show. After she has her enjoyable white day, and William tells her that she can do
enjoyable white day. Have a good white day.
William tells her that she can do this kind of thing as long as she wants, but she has to call in. He has to call in a favor with his woman friend, Christina. Ruby didn't use the money on the tray because she only needed her whiteness to use as currency.
Because just like that SNL skit with Eddie Murphy, white people don't have to pay any money for anything.
Okay. And there it is. It all comes back around.
Yeah. So like you said before, she said it's tough being not just black, but a woman. She's tired of being interrupted by the world. She goes and gets a job with her, I'm going to say phony credentials, only because, I assume that Dell doesn't have all those skills, and she just kind of wrote them down. And she's like, oh my God, this is what I could do. And the assistant manager, also known as the Double O.
Oh, Double O.
Yeah, Ogling, overseer. From Marshall Fields is like, all right, how would you like to be an assistant manager? Just like that. Assistant manager.
Instant promotion.
Yeah. And he says there are some people who quit. Unbelievably, people who quit. I mean, I believe it, but shockingly, people who quit because they did not want to work with a black woman.
Oh, poor Tamara.
She's super excited about her job, so super excited that she stops being Dell, a.k.a. the white woman, and she goes into an elevator, and she does a, Matt, what you put here is a double A.
Double A?
Yeah, it says here, airborne alteration. I like it, in the elevator. She smears everything around. It is very nasty. When she shows up the next day, her boss is very touchy-feely. Some people are complaining. We hear a customer complaining. I can't wait around any longer. Tamara comes back. That's the black woman who got the job that Ruby was upset the last episode because this woman got a job.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what it's like if you're the black woman working there. You can't be at your post because people keep asking you to do more and more stupid jobs.
Right.
So this is kind of where it gets interesting to me. First, she's trying to kind of build Tamara up, but then she's upset because she found out. She's like, well, it's not like she's baiting her, but she's like, I'm sure, you were well educated. And Tamara's like, no, I didn't get past the 8th grade. And so Ruby is strangely upset that this woman got the job and she didn't. I mean, obviously Ruby wanted the job, but she already found out that like it was just because, they finally decided, we have to have a black woman. And so they obviously gave a job to the first black woman who came in. But this is the kind of thing where I'm talking about where like kind of like having power corrupts, where she doesn't treat Tamara the best here as she goes along.
Yeah. Do you think that the transformation potion might have an effect? I mean, not only is Ruby appearance white, but does it affect her processes?
This is interesting. This is kind of an interesting point here that you're making here, Matt, because I hadn't thought about this. But yeah, whenever she transforms back to Ruby, she doesn't kind of carry that like confidence and I can do whatever I want. She doesn't carry that with her until the very end when she does the stiletto surprise.
Yeah.
And then she kind of comes into her own. So maybe it is a thing where it's not just that she's like, okay, now I can get the respect from the world because like they're not looking down on me just because of my color. But maybe there is something in that potion that does it. I mean, it does feel a little bit like out of her character, some of the things she does. And it's not just like, okay, now I can finally it's more than just like now I can finally do the things I want to do. It does feel in a way that it's like she's doing more than she would do anyway, and not just like, okay, finally I can get mine. But there might be something to that, Matt, is what I'm saying. I hadn't thought about it, but that's a good point.
The thing that makes me kind of doubt my own question is in the very next scene when she's trying at the break room trying to get the girls come back to work. They get her to indulge in a little bit of stiletto indulgence. So that's when Hillary asks if Paul has ever gotten fresh with any of the other girls, and they laugh at her. And then they start to bring up calling Tamara an N-word, not the N-word, but another N-word, just as bad to me. And then you see Hillary / Ruby underneath really starting to disdain them some more again. So that's why I just kind of wonder if was that just a disgust at her qualifications, or was there something in the potion? So
that's an interesting point. Let's you know what, I would say put that on the poll too. I'm curious to see what people would think about that one.
Okay. Ruby does manage to get a slight dig back at the girls when William shows up outside, and they're all they think he's dreamy, and she's with him, but he's only there to call in the favor because she to do that favor for Christina, which is to be a waitress at a party.
So now this is another kind of interesting thing that's shown here is that this is kind of their men's club. We're now at we're at the quote unquote local lodge, and right. From what we've heard, it's only supposed to be men. But what I find interesting here, and is kind of they're really hitting it on the head, is that how can Ruby be in here? Because they don't consider black people, especially black women, human beings. They'll say whatever they want in front of her because they just don't consider her a human being, essentially.
Yeah.
And so she's able to go pretty much wherever she wants.
She finds Christina.
Yep.
And then Christina has this charm, this magical object, something that she needs hidden in the office of the leader, Lancaster. And then tells this story which I don't know, that William was supposed to be the heir to the lodge, but was shot in the back in attempt and dumped in the river. Somebody attempted to kill him. She says that Lancaster had believed that he succeeded, but William survived with her help. So does this mean that whatever happens to the body on the outside doesn't hurt the person on the inside?
I mean, it would seem to be a protective shell. I mean, the funny thing that's interesting is that what I see there is William's got scars on the front of his chest, or is that sort of?
They look more like a branding.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Maybe more of a branding.
So I don't know what that was about, and how do you reduplicate that every time with the potion?
I mean, I guess if we ever find out how the form of the person that is generated by the potion, about how that happens, then we'll have an answer to that.
Yeah. Here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
What if there was a William, and William was killed, and now Christina is just using from the corpse of that body to generate him?
Perfect. I love it. Once again, you've outthought me on this one, Matt, and I dig it.
This is very dangerous territory, folks. When I'm out thinking catfish, we're in trouble. Ruby goes to the office with the charm. In the course of doing so, this is another one of those. What is that groaning that Christina's looking at? And this week, there's the groaning.
I have to say, though, this is the kind of thing where sometimes your imagination is better. Like, I was kind of disappointed when I found out it was just a normal guy.
A normal guy with his tongue cut out and he's half dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the very least I would expect when I hear groaning and they're saving it for later. If you're going to save it for later, it better be more delicious than that.
Okay, fair enough. But she hears that Lancaster is actually coming in while she's seeing this dude. She has to jump into the closet with him. She's gagging on him, which made me think that maybe he was dead already, just because, the smell. I guess she was just gagging from all the blood, and probably the guy had excreted all over himself several times in there as well.
Well, plus she's trying to cover up his mouth, and he's probably spitting up blood on her hand. It's gross.
But what she overhears is interesting as well. We hear Lancaster talking about Hiroshia's pages, which I guess were the missing pages.
Sure.
That Tick had. The Winthrop Observatory. I'm not sure what that was about.
Well, they're in the Winthrop house, right? That's where Letty's house is, the old Winthrop house.
Oh, okay. So is that the observatory then? Because I'm confused.
Sure.
Again, tweet at the word double, the letters PHQ, and say, you're wrong. Anyway, after all of that happens, we find out that the person in the closet is someone who stole some loot, but Lancaster says he'll talk soon enough. The dead always do. And that's why I was wondering if he was dead already, because that would make him a double C.
Double C?
A closet corpse.
Ooh.
But anyway, Ruby manages to get out of it. We wonder if she's going to. Of course, it instantly cuts to the next day, where we see Hillary back at the department store. She's bossing Tamara around because Tamara can't, she's not stocking right. She's not displaying right. She doesn't have those kinds of marketing skills that Ruby has. And she covers for herself about dissing Tamara with Paul by saying that Tamara is taking them to the south side. And later, they do end up going.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to start calling her Hilla Ruby.
Now, why did you start calling her that from the beginning of the podcast?
I don't know.
That's the kind of brilliance that needs to be up top, Matt.
Well, see, this is why you're the more popular and I'm not.
It's not true. All right.
But, so we'll call her Hilla Ruby from now on.
Good.
She's not having much fun. So she decides to let herself change back to Ruby. She's going to walk in there and show them. I don't know what that was about, but there's your full-on gross right there with all of the skin laying around her as she steps out of it. But as she's walking back towards the club with nothing but a coat, she sees that Paul's being a little bit too friendly with Tamara.
I mean, I'm a little confused here. The other ladies say he doesn't do anything. He's not like that. But Ruby gets that vibe from him. He's like that with Tamara. I guess what I'm trying to say is he doesn't seem to have a type. Like, if he's going to hit both on Ruby as Hillary and Tamara.
But Catfish.
Tell me.
What if he does have the type? He's not interested in real white women, and something in him senses the black woman within Hillary.
Ooh, okay, all right, okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
You went
that's
there.
Happening
all right,
there.
I like it.
I'm thinking that Paul does have a type, but you see the way he truly feels when Tamara finally gets herself away from him, and that's why I think that he has a type, and that perhaps there's something within Hillary that he senses, and that's why he's attracted to her.
Back at the manor. Yeah,
Ruby is waiting for William, but Christina walks in instead of William, and the first thing Ruby asks, out of nowhere, is what's in the basement. So what do you think the next thing is that we're going to find out about the place where Christina is staying?
That it's not as cool as I was hoping it would be. Just like the moaning dude.
That there's something in the basement, and that it'll be entirely disappointing, just like the closet corpse.
Exactly.
Anyway, Ruby is fed up with the white girls, but Christina gives her, she mentioned earlier that she didn't like being a girl interrupted. So she wants to give her an uninterrupted idea and suggests that using the magic as a currency for unmitigated freedom is in order.
Okay.
Ruby takes that idea and runs with it.
Now, funny thing is, Matt, here, when I first heard that, I thought, oh, does that mean she could be kind of like whoever she wants? Is that what she's talking about? And I don't know, but Ruby had a better idea than I did.
Ruby had the best idea because as she returns to work, she starts to tender her resignation so that she can feign this passion for Paul. And then he's obviously a sexual predator. He kind of uses that nature against him. She shows him what it's like to really have some fun. First makes him suck on her stilettos, and then sheds her skin and puts those stilettos where the sun don't shine.
I mean, put is not quite the right word for it.
Okay, shoves, rams. Yeah, it was brutal. And after what he did to Tamara, I was so ready for that. That was awesome. So she's had a good day, and she goes home, and she's waiting for William, who shows up and again asks, "What's in the basement?" So one thing is for sure, that Ruby isn't the only one using the transformation potion, because William tries to avoid the question, tries to get out of the room, but instead Christina just decides to crawl out of William's skin. But the thing that I want to know is what's in the basement, because they told me that that's what I should be wanting to know.
Okay. What's your supposition, Matt?
Well, I do have a wild speculation.
Let's hear it. I mean, speculation, you can't be wrong. It's just speculation.
That's true. I can safely speculate, right? As long as I discredit it with a wild speculation. You and I have heard time machines mentioned before by Christina in an earlier episode. We've seen in the not so discreet trailers for this season of the show some apparent evidence of time travel. So my guess is that the time machine that they need that orrery for, they need the orrery to unlock it, correct? My guess is that that's what's in the basement.
And I thought it was just a stiletto collection.
That's what I call
one of us is definitely wrong. We can't both be right. That it's a time machine and a stiletto collection.
I'm gonna qualify my thoughts here as a double S.
Double S.
A spoiled speculation, given the trailer. The most important thing is that we forgot the final scene about Tick.
Okay.
Because it seems so disjointed from the rest of the episode. He's decoding. I mean, he's using his decoder ring, and he's decoding some words. Finds one that pretty much startles him, then makes him. I mean, what do you possibly see on a page that'll make you call Korea? And he talks to. I'm assuming it's Gia, this person that he mentioned to Letty. And that he called out by name when they were at the mansion back in episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
But he asks how the person on the other end knew, and we'll call her Gia, said, "You should have listened to me." And he asks what the person is, and the person answers by hanging up. He looked down at the notebook, and the word die is translated out in Tick's notebook. And that's the way the episode concludes.
That was, I'm glad listening to you describe what happened, because I should have gone back and watched that part, because I thought, so he gets one word die and then he calls. At first I was like, did he get that phone number? Is that what's translated there? The phone number? I'm really confused. It seems like there's not enough information still. We're not getting all the information we should for that for that moment to land as much as I feel like they wanted it to land.
Well,
Did
possibly
you feel the same way, or I don't get it?
The reason why I'm kind of probably a little more lenient on this than you, Catfish, is because the first episode when he called, this person on the other end, I'm assuming it's Gia, was giving him trouble for coming to Chicago then also. And then he comes and makes this call, and we get this information, and she says in the past, "You should have listened to me." Obviously, well, not obviously, but speculatively, this means that this Gia told Tick about something that would happen to him before it ever happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems to me that there's a lot of speculation, and there shouldn't be as much speculation as we've had.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment. And maybe this is why I've been so adamant about the whole invulnerability thing, is because Tick said it, and everything that seems to be stuff that we're supposed to see next, or stuff that we're supposed to ask the questions about, gets just slapped. We get slapped in the face with it. So for a dummy like me, that's a good thing. For people who enjoy television like you, probably not. So there you go. We'd be remiss if we didn't have play some of our games here.
Let's do it.
All right. How about 3 words? I will start this time around. My 3 words: slip that skin. And there's kind of actually a theme that was going on in this episode, I feel like, that came through with all of this stuff. And that is that no matter what kind of armor you put on, no matter what kind of skin you put on, you are still yourself to a degree underneath. You are still detectable as yourself. You still feel things as yourself. But sometimes it's fun to be somebody else, like Ruby got to be this week.
My 3 words are more horror, please. That's all. I want more horror. I was just disappointed in this episode. And I'm not going to say that Bubba had 3 words, because he doesn't like to have words put in his mouth. But if he did have 3 words, you know what those 3 words would be?
Oh, I can't imagine. What?
My name, Bubba. That would be his 3 words. All right, we've got some
House
listeners.
is scary.
We've got some listener 3 words, which are better than Bubba's 3 words for sure. Hamlet is dead. His 3 words were a bit gross. Geek Girl
agreed.
Soup said 3 words: systemic racism sample. He said, really just scratched the surface, but presented so well in a way that people can see what the F is going on. It ain't over. And Pat Man, that brute, the bully, his 3-word review: transformative body horror. Oh, wow. All right. So, Matt, we got one more game we have to play, and then we play this game, and then we put it on the polls, and then we see what our listeners think. So Matt, you do your what's worse first?
Okay. Not having a tongue, or being expected to talk after it's been cut out.
All right, you take your side, Matt, and I'll go on the other side.
All right. I am going to say that not having a tongue is worse because the second can't happen without the first. Pretty simple and succinct.
Yeah, but you could not have a tongue and, still get on with your life. Write little notes and hand them to people. You could do simple tasks. You could take a bath and be interrupted. All those things, you're living your best life, your best tongueless life. But being forced into talk after it's been cut out is adding insult to injury. So I'm going to say being expected to talk after it's been cut out. Matt, this is the what worse I have for you.
Uh-oh.
Being screwed repeatedly by a stiletto and dying, or being screwed repeatedly by a stiletto and living.
Oh. Yeah, that one's pretty easy for me, Catfish.
Okay, well,
if you're dead, then you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
So. Argue the other point, Catfish, for me, won't you please?
I can't, you bastard. I was supposed to be able to answer that first. You got it right. You got it right, Matt. It's being screwed repeatedly by a stiletto and living with the shame, the pain, and the agony.
Sometimes it's not the best analysis, but the first analysis that works out for you.
Exactly. What's worse for Bubba? Bubba's question is, what's worse? Having the name of Bubba or having the name of Bubba?
Oh,
yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with having the name Bubba.
All right. We might not put that one on the poll. All right, Matt.
Well, it won't get retweeted if we do.
It won't. Matt, we had a lot of awesome cuts tonight. So first, you got to go through all the amazing cuts. And then after that, we talk about our favorite cut.
All right. Sounds good. There were a ton of music cuts in this one. Once again, Lisa Richardson is your music supervisor putting all of these together. She has a list on Spotify, which doesn't have all of the tunes, but check her out at MaddoLiz on Twitter, and she will direct you towards a Spotify playlist that has most of the tunes that you find in all of these episodes. We started off with Hilla Ruby in the cop car, with Patience and Prudence. That was, they were doing Tonight You Belong to Me. Then, during her White Day, we experienced the spoken word Dark Phrases by Janet Leigh. That's from a piece called For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough.
I believe that's a play, Matt.
Yes, it is. Then how about Black Atlas performing Return to Love? Money by Cardi B, and that was at the Marshall Fields. Bad Religion serenaded Sammy and Montrose during their same-sex HBO Way night. Traumarai, composed by Schumann. And the Shazam app told me that Rudolph Ramming was the artist on that. Please Give Your Love to Me, Robin Robinson. I searched all over for this today and finally found it on TuneFind, thanks to our friends at TV Podcast Industries. Tutti Frutti, there were two versions of that in this episode. The first one in the break room was Pat Boone, because that's the version everybody who's white in the 1950s listens to. Then you had My Baby Dearest Darling, The Charms. That was Will and Hilla Ruby out back as she was getting off work. Then the real version to me of Tutti Frutti is the Little Richard version. Also, this one, Lovin' Machine, was actually done by, I don't know if this was Raphael Sadiq and his band playing in the background at the bar, but it's credited as cast. but it's a cover. Lovin' Machine was actually a 1951 Wynonie Harris tune. Then you have, this one was just beautiful to me, Lonely World by Moses Sumney. Then Bodak Yellow by Cardi B. And, of course, we have the Centerman cover by Angie at the end as well. So, out of all of those tunes, Catfish, if you had to pick one as your needle drop for the week, what would you choose?
I am going to pick Dark Phrases. You know I love the spoken word stuff in this show. I just love it. It's just the music kind of fades into the background and stuff, but the spoken word stuff to me is just so powerful. I missed it when we didn't have one, so I'm back at it.
The only plus side of the episode for you, evidently, at 6.3. Guess it could have been worse. It could have been a Penny Dreadful score of 10 no ma'ams. We had, again, our friends at TV Podcast Industries. They gave us their favorite cut for the week as well. The outstanding usage of Lonely World is a highlight of the season. I've added Moses Sumner's, I thought it was Sumney, but maybe it's Sumner's, catalog to my rotation after that beautiful moment. And that was mine as well. I just, just the production of that song, going from just guitar and vocals to the big, the horns and all of the pieces going on, it really fit that moment for Montrose. I loved it as the accentuation to his kind of coming out party. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was so good. Oh, and sorry for Bubba. Once again, his was Georgia by Ray Charles, even though it wasn't in the episode.
All right, folks. We've given you all of our thoughts about this episode.
And more.
And more than you wanted, probably. So why don't you hit us up so that we can include your feedback or your scolding. Patman23, please be gentle. On
Velvet Glove.
You can tweet to @theword_double, the letters PHQ on Twitter, on Instagram, or you can go to facebook.com/PHQ. Again, on YouTube, if you want to leave a comment there, it's Double P Media. Just search for Double P Media on YouTube and you will find us there. But Catfish, if people want to tell you how you're right and I'm wrong, how can they talk to you?
They should hit me up at CJGman67. And remember, when you're tweeting about the podcast, we're all about hashtag brand recognition. So always tweet with hashtag Shoggoth Surprise. And remember, surprise comes with a surprise R in it before the P. And what about you, Matt? How will they reach out to you?
Well, I think you can find me at Musical Concepts on Twitter. And once again, use that hashtag, because if you do that, or you leave a written review for this podcast before this series is over on whatever podcast app that you're using, you will be included in the contest to win a Cthulhu Funko Pop doll, courtesy of Catfish. All right.
And you will hear from the both of us, wrong or right, next week on
Shoggoth Surprise.
You're happy that time. Who doesn't like a little Shoggoth Surprise in their mailbox?
There were some Shoggoth surprises in this episode that weren't so
yeah, exactly.
weren't so fun.
Exactly. Keep the Shoggoth Surprises away from my body cavities, please.
Yeah, boy. Double B.
Yeah, Bummer Bubba. All right, so we got Bummer Bubba. So good.
Buzzkill Bubba. All right.
Buzzkill Bubba, Bummer Bubba, Wet Blanket Bubba. Oh, we've got the best listeners.
We do, and we're extremely lazy around here, so we love it when you come up with great lines so that we don't have to.
Oh, heck yeah.
Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
what I like to call
Double P podcast.